Actually, in the formal context, it's been since January 2020 since we came together with many of you. This has been long awaited, and as is often the case, we often say London buses syndrome. You're waiting for a number 7, and the 11 comes, the 15 comes, and there's never a number 7. And this week we've got 4 events in the space of 4 days to kick off the BritCham program again. So the number 7 bus is coming in another 3 times. Later on, and we hope you will join us down in Blue Martini here. You're all very welcome as guests of BritCham. We have another with the University of Western England on Thursday, and we have the BritCham Awards and recognitions and twice postponed Christmas and Gala Bash on Friday. If any of you are still without seats or tickets for that, please give one of the team a shout. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all here, and I welcome you here with both an outgoing chairman and a new chairman of BritCham here as well. So Ollie, if you'd like to just wave your hand and say goodbye. Now is the time to sit with us. And Pat Donny will give his own words of welcome very shortly. Also, for me to welcome very briefly our panelists, a more formal welcome on the way to you. Mayor Bima, who will be our keynote speaker. It was a pleasure 3 or 4 years ago to spend time with Mayor Bima, going up and down the UK. We did 3 cities. I know I was with you in Manchester. And excellent. We are reacquainting and reinvigorating this relationship with you. Thank you. Also, Dr. Paul Aitken, who has stepped into Indonesia for the first time for about 2.5 years as well. We have Andy. I know you have a longer name, Andy, but Andy's easier, isn't it? International Relations Director at UGM. We also have Dara Cincinnati. Just here, Dara, put your hand up. Those who don't know you, thank you. Ibu Indri from the Prudential. Also, Ollie, I mentioned to you. Yes, I think that's everybody. With that, I really would like to pass the floor over to the very recently installed chair of BritCham Indonesia, our first Indonesian chairman, Pak Rino Donosopotro, better known to everybody as Donny.
So am I expected to speak in Bahasa then, in that case, I suppose?
Bahasa Perancis, Pak.
Thank you, Chris. And I just wanted to address a few people actually here. Of course, first of all, is the Honorable Nadiem Makarim, our Minister of Education and Culture, and the team from the ministry who are joining us virtually. So thank you for joining us. The Honorable Bapak Bima Arya Sugiarto, Mayor of Bogor and Chairman of APEXI. For those of you who don't know, APEXI is the Indonesia's Association of, I hope I'm right in saying this, municipal governments. So that consisted of 98 cities across Indonesia. Along with the team from APEXI, and I've known Mayor Bima for well over 30 years, and really great friend. We went to college together, with many stories typically actually in college, but he is indeed one of the most progressive public sector leaders in the country today. And really grateful to have you here, both to Minister Nadiem and Mayor Bima for agreeing to take the time to share your thoughts and insights and wisdom with all of us here. Now, I also would like to say hello to BritCham's Human Capital and Education Focus Group, Dr. Paul Atkins. Thank you, Dr. Paul. I mean, you've been really fantastic in your leadership of the focus group, as well as I know that you have prioritized this event to come to Indonesia among your other global priorities. Really great. My predecessor, the previous chair, Ollie Riches, also known AKA as James Bond, broken appropriately dressed actually to the occasion. I'm sorry, actually, but it has been a fantastic partner and mentor, and really great to take on actually from you here. Distinguished members, all the speakers, thank you for taking the time. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning, very good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And it gives me great pleasure on behalf of British Chambers Indonesia to welcome you to our first face-to-face event since January 2020, this afternoon here in Jakarta. So thank you for being here with us. The focus group on human capital and education is who organizes this event is really an important, extremely important part of the BritCham organization. It supports both human resources practice improvement for our wider membership, all of you here, and policy development at a national level through thought leadership and best practice sharing. As you all know, sustainability and climate change right now is really the hot topic, right? It's the issue of the generation. And I can talk on and on actually about this. I only discussed with the chairman of OJK, Indonesia's FSA, we both focus on sustainable finance and how we can accelerate the transition to net zero. I think this requires trillions of dollars capitals, but right now, the forum is aptly picked the title, the topic to discuss, which is on leadership in a sustainable world, essentially. Right? And this really requires a different kind of leadership. First of all, in order to achieve the goals of SDG, the UN SDG, as well as Paris Agreement by 2030, there's no doubt that collaboration between public, private, and the NGOs and multi-development organizations across the world will have to be done, both at a local level as well as internationally. Now, for us in the corporate world, I think navigating through the increasingly more complex operating environment with increasing number of stakeholders with often competing priorities, and as well as maybe conflicting priorities. For example, right now you see the way the situation of the world is, right? Energy and food, commodity prices are really on a super cycle, very high. It has driven inflation left, right, center. But at the same time, many of the countries who have ratified the pledge for Paris Agreement with their own NDCs, or nationally determined contributions, will have to cut down emission. We know that one of the biggest generators of emission is coming from the coal-fired power plant. But the difference here between the price of coal with renewable energies are still significant. Hence, that dilemma sometimes that is being faced by middle-income or developing countries. Again, I will steal the thunder from the speakers and the panelists. You will hear more as we go through this afternoon. But perhaps as the last point, I just wanted to say that BritCham Indonesia is also very honored to be collaborating with APEXI, and you'll see it later, where we will be able to support the development of the youth of Indonesia in leadership through the YCC program that APEXI is launching. I also would like to thank all of the members of BritCham for all of your support and the sponsors as well. And join me in, now that we're entering into New Year, hopefully, that we will meet face to face and we will meet more often. As Chris has said, there's many events and activities that have been lined up. I hope that we can build and nurture and grow BritCham Indonesia as the most impactful international chamber of commerce in Indonesia. Thank you. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Donny. Donny did make reference to Minister Nadiem, who was to be here present with us as our keynote speaker. With great regret, he's unable to be because of a very, very important conflict. However, what he has done is put together a video message for everybody in this room in support of BritCham, in support of the initiatives of the Human Capital Education Member Focus Group, and in support of BritCham developing important relationships like the one with APEXI.
Your Excellencies, Executive Director of British Chamber of Commerce Indonesia, Mr. Chris Wren, Chairman, Vice Chairs, Executive Officers, and Advisory Board of BritCham, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to participate in the launching event of the Human Capital and Education Member Focus Group initiated by the British Chamber of Commerce Indonesia. I believe this focus group will play a crucial role in our current effort to internationalize higher education, to connect educators, exchange knowledge, and develop enterprises together to the benefit of both the education and the economic sectors. On that note, I'm delighted to inform you that Indonesia has taken several bold moves to unbundle higher education, breaking boundaries between universities and public life and other sectors that have restrained our students' creativity, energy, and entrepreneurship for far too long. These restraints have limited opportunities for too many of our future leaders. Without these leaders, Indonesia's vast potential engagement with Britain and the rest of the world has been curtailed. The freeing of those restraints is currently happening through our policy, Merdeka Belajar Kampus Merdeka, or Emancipated Learning for Higher Education. This encourages optimal development of student skills and potential through internships and outside campus training, as well as key elements of the internationalization of higher education, such as scholarship and student exchange programs. Since its first run in 2020, hundreds of thousands of students from all across Indonesia have been participating in Merdeka Belajar Kampus Merdeka programs, indicating a growing interest among younger generations to expand their networks, explore new experiences, and more importantly, a desire to be part of the global movement to create a better future. With that in mind, I appreciate BritCham's commitment in encouraging relationships between British and Indonesian universities for the purpose of student exchanges, lecture exchanges, and product development in line with the national and global priority research. I strongly believe that with the launching of the Human Capital and Education Member Focus Group and collaborative programs between British and Indonesian institutions, students from both countries will receive many benefits in terms of skills and knowledge, placing them in a pivotal role in sustainable development. It is my hope to integrate the findings of this focus group more generally into the Campus Merdeka programs, and I'm looking forward to maintaining and reinforcing British-Indonesia networks for current and future collaborations to encourage greater and more innovative ideas. Together, we can build a better future by realizing quality and relevant education for all our students. Thank you very much.
As I said, sincere apologies extended from Minister Nadine, but a very carefully crafted message that covers many of the points of great importance and great interest and mutuality here of us today. With us today, we have, as mentioned, Mayor Bima Arya Subiato, Mayor of Bogor, and also the Chairman of APEXI, here to give his keynote speech to members, friends, stakeholders of BritCham. Mayor Bima.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Chris, my best friend Donnie, and all of the speakers, the members of BritCham, the audiences. It is an honor for me to be part of very important discussions of very interesting topics. The topics which has been my major concern since my early stage, early stage of my career as a lecturer and also political scientist. And also, it has been also my passion since I started my term as mayor of Bogor. The youth, leadership, and the future of Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, the youth are actually the main indicator of change in Indonesian society. Youth are also high in number, and it is always golden moment for government, for politicians, political parties, to include youth in public policy and also in political educations. And for many years, not only since the New Order, but since the Soekarno era, the segmentations of young and early voters has been the target of politicians and political parties in every political contestations, both local and national contestations. And now, if we can see the data of the citizenship in Indonesia, young and early voters will dominate in 2024 election. Early voters under the age of 20 are estimated to reach 17.5 million people, while the age of 20 to 30 reach 42.8 million people. So it means that the millennials and Gen Z make up to 60% of the electorates in Indonesian future election. And since the beginning of Reformasi, the political parties have been struggling in making different approach to attract the attentions of young voters and also early voters, ranging from how to dress, how to communicate, and also how to use the multiple channels of social media as well as mainstream media, and how to be present in updated social media channels like TikTok, for example. And TikTok, YouTube, and also Facebook are currently most popular platforms option for reaching and penetrating these young people. Vloggers, endorsers, and also influencers were brought into play to be more appealing for young and early voters. The digital industries and social media are actually effective channels in helping political actors and also the government to send the right messages for the youth and also increasing political participations and strengthening the political ID of the young and early voters in Indonesia. But ladies and gentlemen, Bapak Ibu, the biggest question which may arise today is that, to what extent do the political parties and politicians successful in gaining support from these young and early voters? And more importantly, in terms of grooming leaders, in terms of educating young voters, in terms of building the characters of the young generations, how significant is the role of social media in shaping not only political perspective of the young people, but also their character and their ideological beliefs. If you are referring to what is happening now in our neighborhood country, the Philippines, the Bongbong Marcos phenomenal victory in the last presidential election in the Philippines is also determined by a campaign strategy that target millennials and Gen Z through multiple channels of social media. They targeted the element of voters with no collective memories of the rough times in the Philippines during the rule of Ferdinand Marcos. I was second grade in the secondary school, high school, when Marcos was toppled, when the people power was there in the Philippines. But now the situation has dramatically changed. So in the case of Indonesia, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, not many politicians and also political parties, political actors, political activists, and also government officials adopt the right approach and effectively engage with young and early voters. And I perceive that most of government officials, most of party politicians, and probably most of local leaders, mayors, agents, and governors, they fail for doing two things. First, they fail in choosing the right narratives for young voters and early voters. They fail to formulate interesting key messages, and they fail to give a very substantial message for educating young people. So apart from wearing sneakers, apart from dancing in TikTok, I don't see any substantial message behind the maneuver of most of political leaders in the social media channels. And secondly, they fail in talent scouting, recruitment, and political mentoring to hone the leadership talents of the young people in multiple fields. So political parties, I have to admit, I myself now is one of the party chairman in the National Mandate Party, but I have to admit that political parties tend to be busy only at election time and sleeping between the election time. That is my confession. So, Bapak Ibu, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to convey a very interesting data taken from a polls conducted by Indonesia Indicator. These polls, this survey, provide insight on the interest of young people toward global issues. As we may already aware that many people suggest that young people are not interested in global issues. Young people don't give concerns on SDGs and so on and so forth. But according to the polls, according to the survey, it shows that 82% of the respondents between 17 and 26 age group are aware and concerned on climate change issues. And it is interesting to see that the Generation Z, Gen Z, show high awareness toward climate change, significantly higher than millennials. So the younger the voter, the more aware they are about this issue. And 81% of the young group also believe environmental preservation and also protections must take precedence even at the cost of economic growth. It is interesting. If they have to choose between the economic growth and economic preservation, they will choose the latter. And they perceive that Indonesian political parties lack effort to address climate change. So the data. Does it mean that I have to stop now?
You still got 30 more minutes.
Am I running out of time, Tony?
You still got 34 minutes.
Somebody can give me a thought?
Yeah.
Check. So the data refutes the popular assumption that young people are apathetic of environmental issues. Apparently, they have a real and genuine concern for them. So politicians, party politics, government officials, local leaders, mayors, and government should be able to act upon this insight. First, articulate the global issues consistently, not only during the election time, but throughout the time. And secondly, involves the younger generation segment as spokespersons on the issue of climate change, SDGs, and so on and so forth. And while at the same time, strengthening young literacy programs based on global future issues. And if you are looking at the city leadership in Indonesia today, I think we should be proud of to see the emergence of collaborative leadership patterns. Local leaders, who are now involving the creative communities in the process of urban change. Thanks to the adoptions of local elections since 2005, a new breed of local leaders, a new breed of regional leaders has emerged, competing with each other and advancing innovative ideas and also exercising collaborative development methods. Pak Jokowi, Presiden Jokowi, was actually the first generations of dialect erection products that inspired many of the next generations of regional leaders, including Ridwan Kamil, Azwar Anas, and also Emil Dardak, which was had a position as the Bupati of Trenggalek and now the Vice Governor of East Java. And today, if we are comparing the background of local leaders today and the new order era, we can see the differences, Bapak Ibu, ladies and gentlemen. During the new order, most of local leaders, they were coming from military officers, and most of them were over 50 or probably over 60 because they are retired persons. But today, if you are looking closely on the background of local leaders, we can see more and more local leaders are having higher educations, study abroad, master degree, PhD from Indonesia and also overseas. And more local leaders are coming from younger generations, below 40 or 50. So I think it is a good sign of having a new trend of political leaders who tend to be more concerned, not only in engaging with political, with the young leaders, but also in building the leadership character for a young leader because of their personal background. In the city of Bogor, the involvement of youth and community has been significant behind some of our successful projects, such as waste management through West Bank and Bogor without plastic. Since 3 years ago, we introduced a mayoral decree which banned the plastic bag to be used in a modern new market throughout the city. And starting this year, we are beginning to implement this mayoral decree into traditional market. So the role of creative communities, young people are very significant in endorsing and campaigning our campaign in Bogor, which is related to the issue of SDGs, environment, waste management, and so on and so forth. I always admire the sincerity of youth, the spirit and the passion of youth in making collaborations with the city government. And in 2015, I would like to give you another example of how young people and youth are actively engaged in the city of Bogor throughout many city government projects. In 2015, the city of Bogor was awarded the most lovable city in the world by WWF. It is not the wrestling one, it is the worldwide fund. It is a public engagement campaign that allows people across the world to express support for sustainable urban development by voting their favorite winners. So the community activists in Bogor have played a very important role in our campaign to win the war. So this event was conducted far before the polls conducted by Indonesia Indicator. So at that time, I knew that younger generation are now having a deep concerns on global issues, climate change, SDGs, and so on and so forth. So, Bapak Ibu sekalian, now I would like to expand, enhance what we have been doing, what we are doing now in Bogor into a larger scale, to a nationwide scale. As the chairman of APEXI, Asosiasi Wali Kota Indonesia, 98 cities, Bapak Ibu, APEXI is now preparing a program that we call YCC, Youth City Changer. We will invite the city's creative community from 98 cities, consists of young people, a group of creative community recommended by every mayor to attend our national meeting next June in Padang. So this creative community will compete based on their ideas and innovation for city development. I have been witnessing the beauty of collaboration between young people, creative community, and also the city government. In Samarinda, in Surabaya, of course, in Bandung, in Balikpapan, and in some other cities. So, in this program, national leaders and experts from multiple fields will also provide mentoring sessions and doing some sort of assessment to determine who will be the winner at the end of this year. This program will encourage discussion, experience sharing, and also building national networking of creative communities throughout the nation. And this program is not only for talent scouting and networking, but also to encourage the duplications of young creative communities collaborations with city governments in Indonesia. On these occasions, allow me to invite the members of BritCham to be part of the first batch of this program to prepare our next generations for their futures. And we have to convince the young people of Indonesia that the future belongs to those who prepare for today. And life is not about sprint, but life is about marathon. And I invite BritCham to join this program to jumpstart future leaders who are visionary and environmentally inclined. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor Bima. A lot of passion there, talking about the drive of young people, the spirit of young people, and the passion of young people. And actually, BritCham has accepted the invitation to support the Youth City Changers program, the first of its kind, going to be launched in August, with a view to having some national champions from the 98 cities to which Mayor Bima referred towards the end of the year. There's something else that he's invited BritCham to do, pushing me to do, and that is to go out on a limb with our members and try to support, I think, 3 of these finalists with scholarships for some sort of further education program in particular, and ideally among some of the BritCham panel. I know we have 2 or 3 of them represented here. There'll be conversations to have. And a forewarning to our members that we'll be having discussions with you, with those that might be interested in some way supporting some scholarships that I'm going to try with best efforts to try to make happen. But in the meantime, what we have done with Dr. Paul and the Human Capital and Education Member Focus Group, we have made a commitment to support through mentoring from some of the academia within the Member Focus Group of BritCham, and also practitioners from within the Focus Group as well. So BritCham membership is accepting your invitation to support in a tangible way so that this program will have the internationalization that Minister Nadim mentioned in his message to us. And with that, Mabima, you and I are going to sign these agreements here on the table. At our first gathering since January 2020, you will be all witnesses to it, but in terms of a penned witness, our new chairman, Pat Knowles.
How about a round of applause?
Okay, so our commitment signed, sealed to the Youth City Changes program. Now we're going to move to the panel discussion. The panel discussion will be moderated, and if you'd like to come up as I mention your name, Dr. Paul Aiken, Chairman of BritCham's Human Capital and Education Member Focus Group, and also the founder of MLA Singapore, and known among our group most specifically for the Agility Ship program. Dr. Paul. Andy Asana, academia, author, head of office of the International Affairs UGM #1 University in Indonesia, and also responsible for an awful lot of education content that he creates on these social platforms. Bima, we already have. Dara Cincinnati is the managing director of BritCham Logistics, also a committee member of the Research and Digital Sharia Economy with Kadin. Ibu Indri Rahayo is the Chief Human Resources and Community Investment Officer of the Prudential Indonesia. Ollie Riches, as introduced to you earlier, as the former chairman, but now consultative board member of BritCham Indonesia, and is now the senior managing director for the Southeast Asia region of Page Group, and Rino Saputro Adoni, who is the vice chair for ASEAN of Standard Chartered Bank. And with that, I will hand over proceedings entirely to Dr. Paul and also Pat Andy and the panel.
Thank you, Chris. Well, what a wonderful sight I have in front of me after all this time of meeting you through Zoom and being zoomed out, and now we all are doing something that's essential to leadership, without which leadership has no influence, and that is the human touch. And it doesn't matter really that we're a little bit behind time, because all that good catching up is part of what speakers have already been saying, that we need to collaborate, share knowledge, build our relationships, because the challenge set in front of us is a collective one. No one individual has all the answers, and joining people together is really one of the goals of not just British Chamber of Commerce, Indonesia, but for all of you in your everyday roles. Now, while we have Mayor Beamer with us, and having outlined a very tangible delivery program to really hit the agenda, which is selecting and developing Indonesia's future leaders to deliver a sustainable world. Do we have any questions for Mayor Beamer from the audience, please?
Good afternoon, dear panelists and dear honorable ladies and gentlemen. Yes, my name is Dina, and I would like to ask the first question to all the panelists. Yes, we are discussing about very important and crucial topics, which is developing leaders, future leaders to be precise. My question to all the panelists is about your perspective and opinion about self-resilience and also empathy. So, in your opinion, how does the self-resilience and also empathy play a role in the leadership, and do you think that it's going to be one of the most crucial or important ingredients in the leadership? How can we actually nurture those two traits in the youth or the next generation? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question, and that moves us into question and answer mode quite nicely. So let's run with it. So if I heard you correctly, you're suggesting that resilience and empathy are two key leadership skills, particularly in an era of sustainability. Okay, well let's throw it open to the panelists. Who would like to respond?
Thank you. My name's Ollie, and I'm on my big farewell, apparently. Well, I just arrived today. So it is an interesting question. There was a global survey by one of the big management consultancy firms recently looking at board level around empathy towards ESG in general. 71% of the boards interviewed or questioned on this have said that they now have implemented ESG metrics, which is obviously around sustainability to I suppose, force the agenda and the mindset. Now, Dr. Paul will have some views on that in terms of the softer skills attached to that, but what it is emphasising is there is a genuine shift during the pandemic. I think it's been accelerated during the pandemic to really align at the senior level. The challenge is, how does that resonate from board level down to the youth of today, I suppose. And we've recently done our own talent trends report at Michael Page for Indonesia. 61% of the people who responded said they will ask the question during an interview process around that company's purpose, policies, agendas around sustainability, particularly attached to two topics. One is diversity and inclusion, and the other is environmental sustainability. So 61% of people are saying that, and this is taken from around 3,000 samples. Clearly, that is important. That number goes up significantly when you look at the Gen Z millennial responses. It's above 90%. So they will ask the question at an interview, and they will expect somebody better to tell them this is what we're doing as a company. The good candidates will see straight through a cosmetic answer. There needs to be proof that because of what Mayor Beamer was saying around social media. It's very easy these days to go and do your own due diligence and track to see if something has actually happened or not. And that question around empathy is exactly what that resonates with. So in a talent-short market, it's really important, and this is a differentiator for companies. If they get this right, they will stand out of the crowd when trying to attract top talent across any industry or any discipline, not necessarily for sustainability roles. So there is a big opportunity here rather than a big challenge, is what we're seeing from the data we've already produced.
Thank you. It's a very good question. Basically, during the pandemic for the past 3 years, we have learned that resilience and empathy is the two values that are actually very important for all leaders here. Then how this link into the sustainability? Sustainable leaders is the one who not just taking care of the financial business as usual, but is also the one who take care of what is happening around them, whether this is the people around them or the world around them. The one who able to integrate between the financial growth and what is happening around them is the one who usually have what is called purpose. The leaders with purpose is the one who see things from long term instead of just short terms of financial impact or profitability of the business. So the one who has a long-term visions or long-term objective is the one who will have or will develop themselves to be a resilient leader. Because in order for them to stay focused on what is their passions and what is their purpose in life, they need to be resilient. Because all the way the challenge, the uncertainty will always happen along the way when they are pursuing whatever the journey that they have. And how the empathy is going to be very valuable here, because the leader will not be able to create or to change by themselves. They need to collaborate. They need to partner. They need to also understand and empathy with whatever the visions, the different mindset and different thinking around them that may need to be considered for them in order to build the long-term sustainable growth of the business. So hopefully that is answering your questions. It also takes courageous for the leaders to be sustainable leaders, because once they have evaluated or all the aspect around what happened, what is the changes in the world, they need to make an actions from there, because without actions, nothing will change. So the actions is what it takes courageous for the leaders to make that happen. And those actions that will lead against courageous, resilience, and empathy for them to collaborate together. I hope that is going to link everything into one. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to answer for the question. I think those are the foundation, a really strong foundation in any organization or business. In BBM itself, even before the pandemic, we gather people in the communities to pray and really asking them questions about what they need and how we can help them, because we live in a society, we need each other, and we have to be able to reach each other. And to be a leader, we have to have courage to keep improving ourselves, have grit, and I think that's a very strong word and very important that skills that we have as a leader, to be compassionate and to have grit.
Thank you very much. If I may add a little bit, I would like to link what Ibu Indi just nicely mentioned about a leader with vision, basically care about things outside or beyond their traditional business. I want to link this to Pak Don. You mentioned about, for example, very important issues like climate change. What do you think about how an industry, which is traditionally they focus on profit, but on the other hand, they really have to concern on this global issue? Because in my traditional opinion, it is impossible for a company or industry to focus only on the issues that beyond the traditional issues or matters. What is the strategy that you think best for industry to combine these two? If you have any opinions.
Thank you. And thank you, Mali. I suppose it's always a classic question, right? Actually, when you go into in the old world, actually the corporates are not because I'm in the financial market, but generally we are the capitalists, right? Actually, it's profit first. Now, I suppose, the whole game has changed completely. It's all about people, planet, and profit. So that's actually how you incorporate from the top down the whole entire spectrum of the sustainability, social, economic factor as well. Now, how does company transition? So I think actually what we have seen is that, before I answer very specifically on that, I think the last few years, the global phenomenon of the voluntary carbon market, for those of you who understand actually about the carbon trading and so on, this term voluntary carbon market has come up. It is driven by an exponential growth of global companies embracing or committing to net zero. What does it mean? That means actually that they will, in terms of their carbon emission, whether that's directly from their own operations or indirectly. So for example, we as the bank, we have also made a commitment on net zero from our financing. So all of the clients that we finance would have to equally, at the end of the day, to be net zero. Now, how do we transition towards this? Obviously, that's a roadmap that is worthy of further discussions and so on. But I suppose at the moment for the companies, the innovation or innovative skill set for the leaders are very important. How do you marry those two together? Right? I mean, it's all for the good reasons and so on. But as the move actually is not as difficult as that. I mean, you think actually, Andy, your point is, it's impossible for commercial corporations to focus only on the other things and not care about profit. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we work for our shareholders. But now, the issue is probably progressing towards the point that there's a lot more alignment between the investors, shareholders, particularly the developed markets, the OECD markets, or high-income countries that has permeated towards emerging markets. That we are all responsible for what's happening with our planet. Now, there's a lot more, I think now, opportunities, commercial opportunities that come up from the marrying actually of the two, whether it's climate change, whether it's sustainability related activities, with how companies can actually make profit. So this really actually requires a whole mindset change. So when we talked about skill sets and so on, I think for someone, leaders of a company to have vision, I think in the old days we also say that, have vision, but vision to do what? I mean, to create as much profit as possible. I mean, that's a different thing. But now the vision is actually different because you really actually have to adapt to the ever-changing world, actually incorporate the whole people, planet, profits, sort of principles. But the other thing is that very often, as I said in my speech, I think you can actually from the outset see competing, if not often conflicting priorities between all the aspects actually in the operating environment. But how do you innovate products? How do you innovate breakthroughs, initiatives? This is really taking to the next level. I'm not talking or referring actually on creativity as in the creative industries and so on, but this is more actually creativity level actually that how can you marry between the two? I mean, for us in the financial sector, how do you finance infrastructure projects? And very long term, and actually solar power is more expensive than coal-fired power plant. So how do you create commercial reasons actually that? Because what we want is to retire as early as possible coal-fired power plant. That there are a number of instruments, ways and so on that we're talking at the B20 as part of Indonesia's leadership of the G20 that really actually try to find ways to solve that. But that, again, that's how we better. But as more and more corporates in the world are embracing net zero, I think the task would be relatively easier to go forward. Thank you.
As far as the character of generation is concerned, there has been analysis on the character of each generation, ranging from baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Y, Gen Z, and now Gen Alpha. Many would conclude that Gen Z is much more individuals, focused on individual achievement. But the good thing is that they concern more on family values. That is interesting and much most of them are also interested in, learning about religious issues. But apart from that, I think what it is interesting now is how to construct a method of education which should be complementary each other. I always emphasize the importance of having the cosmopolitan generations for our kids today. The younger generations who are, having a deep understanding about local cultures. If they are Sundanese, they can speak Sundanese fluently. They can do the Pencastilat dance, for example. They know the history of their cities. And they have also the strong nationalism spirit. But also, at the global context, they have to adjust with the global issues, local, national, and global issues. And I always believe the beauty of having deep understanding about local wisdom. For example, in our city, we are very proud to say one sentence which always been the final speech in the local parliament meetings. Dinukiwari ngancik pembihari, sejak ayana sang perenjaka. Do you know what does it mean, Madoni? It means that what we are having now is the result of the effort of our ancestors. And what we are doing now will be enjoyed by the next generations. So it's the wisdom among generations. That is our duty today. To give the meaning of values through the deeper understanding of local culture. Then they will have empathy. And they will have more concern about the environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, panelists. Now, any other questions from the audience, from what you've heard so far? Yes, please.
Thank you. I'm myself from G4S. It's a global security company. I have more interested into BioBima. As I'm happy to see you here. I'm listening to your speech, and I think it's very encouraging. Being myself has been a leader for multinational companies for years. The challenge we have in Indonesia is running multinational companies is shortage of potentials or young parents to be employed in the multinational companies. We have a lot of huge resources. Unfortunately, quite many of them are not really skillful enough to be in the level where we are looking for. It's always a question of who will be responsible. Of course, we are the private sectors, multinational companies, very eager to support, to develop them, the future leaders of Indonesia. But let alone the multinational companies or private is really having a challenge. So looking for the really genuine interest from the governments as the regulators to really develop together the potential of the future leaders in Indonesia in concrete. It's not only rhetoric, it's not only when they are coming for the elections, but it's really in the real and concrete programs, how we can work together, create leaders, strong leaders for Indonesia. Because the country will, we believe the country will develop if we have very strong leaders. Other than that, it's just full. So leaders with a very strong values in the great integration, with very strong values of honesty, those kind of things. Sometimes we have very good talents, but they are lacking of values of integrity, of respect, and those kind of things. So I think I'm happy if, or maybe BioBima can share with us, I can escalate this into your colleagues in the political parties, in the government. Look, there are responsibilities, there are people. If we combine all the potential we have, we will have very huge potentials within this country. So that's, thank you.
Okay. If we are visiting some big cities in Europe, America, Then we go to museum, we go to some historical places. I remember I went to Churchill Memorial Park in London, and I met a lot of young people there, and I envy them. They don't have to attend Penataran keempat. They only have to visit Churchill Memorial Park to be inspired by the great persons like Churchill. They are very proud of Churchill only by visiting Churchill Memorial Park. They don't have to attend Penataran and so many boring events. So the issue here is how to inspire with the proven legacy of great leaders and how to transform the values of the past to current generations. Now, I plan to build the Museum of Patijara in the city of Bogor. It's like to revive, to give a birth about the greed of our Pajajaran kingdom, so the young generation can learn from the past, the values, the documents, the spirits, which can make them proud as a citizen. And it is also the plan of some cities in Indonesia with the networking of Jaringan Kota Kosaka Indonesia to build the same project in some cities. That is my example how to inspire the next generations with the strong our local cultural values. So it is about menghidupkan keteladanan. It is about membangkitkan kejayaan untuk bekal ke masa depan. Because it is one of the way out. If we are trapped in the problem today, if we are looking at the surrounding situations, so many corruption cases, so many problems, so many scandals, but we have to be proud of that we have great stories in the past that can be brought to the future. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Yes, of course.
So much. I think I'm from private, and I think this is also a calling for everyone here. I think what we have done in the last 1 year with the government, what is called Kampus Merdeka. I think everyone of you are familiar with. It is one of the move coming from the Minister of Education, encouraging private sectors to work together with the university on Kampus Merdeka. Prudential actually one of the company who really volunteered to be part. I think most of leaders here also understand that the company is also working together. I think that is one of the big move I think that has been taken by the government in really improving public-private partnership in building the future leaders of the country. Seamlessly, that now it is become more transparent for the students on what is actually the expectations coming from the industrial sector like us, and what is actually the future leaders that will be able to build this country better. I think if I would really encourage anyone who lead the business nowadays. If you haven't been involved in Kampus Merdeka, please just reach out to any university because they are looking for private sector to be part of. I am glad to share within the past 6 months, more than 6 months, perhaps it was launched last year. Prudential has been facilitating 170 more apprenticeship in the companies. And I'm glad when the recruitment opens beginning of this year, 14 of them already become our permanent employees. So I think this is really a win-win solutions, and moving forward, if this is something, and I hope with all the prudential change, with all the presidential change, it will not change, because building leaders of the country takes longer time. I hope this program will continue, and if this is continuing, I think this is also going to be, answering, the homework right now on how to really build a good government in the country. Thank you.
Very, very and Maddie, and you both touched on education there in different ways. So this is a question to both the audience and the panelists. How does the education system need to adapt and change to produce the different types of leadership that we now need to create a more sustainable world? So I'm throwing that out to you, the people as well. We've got the brains trust in the room, right? By the way, did you know that you are 7 days ahead of the World Economic Forum at Davos that are also considering this very issue, starting this weekend? So we're ahead of the game already. Let's keep going. So the education system, how does that need to change? It needs to change at all.
May I say something apart from the role as a moderator? I would like to follow on what Indi mentioned, and also you mentioned about the gap, right? I think that is what we are facing now. What Mas Nadi mentioned about the Merdeka Belajar Campus Merdeka is really what Indi mentioned. This is, in our opinion, in campus, is one of the ways to bridge this gap, basically. We understand this is something that this is not new actually. To send students to companies, to send students to industry is not something new. But now it becomes a collective and massive policy coming from the government. This is having something new. So what Mas Nadiem has been doing now is actually to put these different programs that we have been doing actually since quite a long time ago into one package. And somehow, in my opinion, he is quite successful in, if I may say the word branding, this different program into one big program. So everybody is now aware of this. Let's say, for example, how to send students to communities. We in Gajah Mada, we have been doing it since the 60s or 70s, or sorry, 50s even. But now we have another, not another, but a similar program packaged into one. So I think what I would like to mention here is that not only about the substance of the program, but how we put the narrative into that program. I think Mayor Bima, for example, mentioned about everybody's using TikTok now. I mean, all the politicians, but the lack of substance. But on the other hand, if they focus on substance, but if they fail to bring a narrative, I think that also doesn't work for the millennials and Gen Z. I think that's probably the point that I would like to address here. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
Try this one. Use that one.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rifa. I'm from IPMI International Business School. It's very interesting, the question that you raised. How do we then, in the academic world, how do we incorporate these leadership skills in? How do we need to teach our students? Perhaps I can share our experience. I have a partner with me here. Next to me is the National Director from the Duke of Edinburgh International Award. It is a program which encourages the youth 14 to 24 to really find their potential. It's a leadership program. In my school, in the IPMI International Business School, we have a partnership agreement with the Duke of Edinburgh Award. whereby all our students are automatically enrolled in the program. And we have a class, a leadership class, one semester, of which these students are mandatory to join the program. It's usually a program in the high school. However, since it's up to 24 years old and universities are until 24, well, 22, so then our students are obliged to take this program for one semester, and they're given an award for that. So they're really proud to join the program and to be an alumni of this program. They are given the opportunity to join voluntary service, community involvement service. They have to find another potential skill. They have to find a new skill. And they also have to do sport. So it's very important for their healthy body. In simple terms, it teaches the youth to find a sense of purpose because they have to complete that. And it's mandatory for just 6 months, but they can continue afterwards. So it's something perhaps that can be adopted also by other universities. Thank you, Pat.
Great concrete example. By the way, what age should leadership and skills development start? And where should it start?
So I think the leadership needs to be taught in a very young age. The Green School Bali is setting a great example of this. So every Wednesday, they gather all of their students and teachers working to the beaches, cleaning the beaches, and just talking with the local communities what they need and why they keep using plastics, for example. And I think it's setting a great example because they teach really good life values since a very young age. And from that, they know and they respect the culture as well because they have to work with local communities. They can be a great global citizen.
Sorry, I just wanted to add, I think when you talk about education, what kind of education, I linked it actually with the question actually that was asked about MNCs in Indonesia. Often difficult to find talent actually at that level actually they want to achieve with the right sets of leadership skills what needed. I think that when you talk about sustainability, climate change, very clearly that we human beings actually we are all behind in meeting Paris Agreement or UN SDG goals by 2030. I mean, one big measure would be the capital required actually to fund all of those projects. And believe me, it's not about capitalism, but they require massive trillions of dollars of capital. Now, when you talk about education, because it requires every single stakeholder, every single people, actually, young or old, in the whole world, actually, to embrace it and accelerate the pace, right? So when you talk about education, I think it should not just be put into the formal education system, because we don't have time. Now, I do want actually to highlight in the challenge to many of our members who are here, who are corporates operating in Indonesia. We should play our part, I think. And the way that we develop our so-called talent, the whole, I'm sorry, I'm not from HR, so the so-called talent management, and I know Ollie actually is the master actually in all of this, you know, sort of talent development, talent management, you know, whatever you call it, learning and development sort of department. The way we do that actually would really have to massively change, because what we need is to ensure that this whole dogma about short tourism, and so on, actually, of course, would have to go out of the door. But we need to ensure that all of our staff, there's a lot of millennials actually who are out, but we need to better equip them with whatever is needed in navigating through the current sort of, because very early on we talk about empathy, we talk about awareness and getting that. I think Mary must spoke very, very aptly about inspiring. And I think they need to be inspired, but our staff needs to be inspired, but we have to take responsibility. Then you move on actually into how do you innovate actually in this current sort of global context and all the rest of it. Now, specifically for MNCs operating in Indonesia, I think the onus is actually back to us to develop in regions with global mindsets, introducing them, whether that's program actually to send them in other networks overseas actually for a number of years and back again. But I think actually we can't just sort of ask and demand. The Indonesian education system to provide the right talents for us, we have to groom them as well.
May I add? I want to, to say some intimidating statement. Sorry for this. From whoever in the rooms, who is our Gen Y millennials who were born 1980 or younger, from 1980 and after? Maybe can you please raise your hand? Thank you so much. So you can see around, it's already almost 40% of us, right? Yeah, 40% of us. So it means that 60% of us is, Gen X and older. And fortunately, we are all decision makers. Agree? You are here because I believe most of you are a decision maker in the company, right? So my questions is, from the earlier data coming from Mayor Bima, mentions that young generations, especially Gen Y, has more awareness on sustainability, has more awareness on well-being, has more awareness on apa tadi Pak, satu lagi, sustainability, well-being, family, family. We are leader and we are decision maker. Should we change or shouldn't we change? If we are not ready to change ourselves as a leader and our company as a leader, as a company who, facilitating all the young people in our company, we may not be relevant any longer. Right? We may not be relevant as a leader because for young generations, what is important for them? I observe three things. First, innovations, you have mentioned earlier. Innovations is very important, and that's the courageous to make the innovations implemented, happens and implemented. Second, speed and practicality. Some things in the past we are not really taking care. We have innovations for 1 year, it's okay. Nowadays, 1 year is no longer an option. You need to have an innovations coming up into the market for 3 months. Yeah. So speed, and third is economical. It was mentioned earlier in data with Mayor that the young people like to be more economical, and that's why Uber, etc., is now getting, beating the current or the incumbent. Whatever is innovations created, it's all really giving the benefit that now everything is going cheaper. So I'm calling all the leaders here. Are you yourself ready to change and make changes in the company that you are leading right now? Because if not, we may not be relevant leader any longer. Thank you for that. Sorry for the inconvenience.
Thank you, Eva. That's a really, really good challenge to all of us. And, we make that assumption that the learning has to go from older people to younger people, right? Well, maybe it has to come the other way as well. Maybe reverse mentoring. We ought to see a lot more reverse mentoring. That is people in senior roles being humble enough, having enough humility to learn from younger people, but do it tangibly. Do it in a. You can't do it in an informal way. Do it in a structured way, because you're sending signals to the rest of the management group that actually it's exactly what you said there. That if they're not, that generation are not prepared to listen and to adapt and to change, then where are the role models? And we need more role models, in my opinion. It's how people learn. It's what people see happen that's inspiring. Not words, but actions. So thank you very much for that challenge. It's a crucial one. Hey, look, we only have a couple of minutes left for this part of the day. Let's open it up again to the audience. Any other questions or observations or insights, please?
Thank you very much. My name is David Knowles. I've been a long time with BritCham and also involved in the training development education group for a very long time as well. I want to build on a number of things that have come, but very briefly because we only have a couple of minutes left. But Donald pointed out that there's some kind of paradox between the demands of the service to shareholders and working for shareholders and the demands of sustainability. And it struck me that despite the fact that, yes, we need to change, we do have examples that we can already build on. Because really we're talking about a kind of healthy conflict, a conflict between the need to be concerned about sustainability and sustain that and focus on that, and at the same time, the need to continue to be profitable and do the right thing by the shareholders. So in a way, that's like healthy conflict, and we already have that as an operating factor in our companies and our corporations. So you've got between quality and manufacturing, for example. You've got between sales and operations. You've got these conflicts that are deliberately built in between finance and the compliance of financial standards and the desire of the sales team to get stuff done and get it through. These are part of our life already. And actually, if we can focus on that and be truthful about those things, then we do have some experience at managing between those kinds of healthy conflicts. And this is another one, a very, very big one indeed. I think that's already we've got time for, but we do already have examples for that kind of thing. I see one danger. I see a number of dangers, but I see one danger. I've been a consultant for about 35 years, so I have the right to be a little bit cynical and skeptical sometimes about what consultants are very good at doing. And there's a danger that sustainability will become a trend. It will become a label that is easy to stamp on something and becomes lip service. And I think that we all actually have to change. In my experience, you can be willing to change intellectually, but to actually change your daily habits and the way you interact with people is very, very difficult. So I think we do have a challenge ahead of us, but I think we have some background we can build on. I think there's much, much more to say about the whole topic. I'll stop myself there. Thank you very much for the opportunity to say something.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much. We have a little 2 or 3 minutes to... Yes, please.
So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Amy from Untitled Indonesia, and really thankful to be here with all the seniors in here. So, I just want to share my experience because I have been given a chance by Untitled to enter a non-similar industry with what I had experienced before. So, I came from hospitality background. Right, so along, I think 13 years of career, all in HR and hospitality background. And then I was, for almost 2 years, looking for an opportunity to, excel myself into another industry. And it was quite difficult to be honest. So I think, and I'm really blessed to have Red Carlton accepting me finally after that long search. But I guess it's an example of, that our business professional world is not really on hands in giving equal opportunity, because most of the industry is looking at, yeah, you have to come from the same industry, you have to come, you have to have at minimum maybe some educational background that maybe nowadays, like Ibu said before, is not relevant anymore. So I think in a chance it's will be good for we as the leaders in the industry. We open a chance to a different perception of mindset. So it's not necessarily because we are coming from certain industry that we have to take talent from the same industry. It's also interesting to open your industry to a different, kind of talent, type of talent that you can explore more. And on top of that, I would like also to emphasize on the acquisition talent from the disabled people. Because I think before in hospitality industry we had quite some program to collaborate with some that kind of charity, and it was also interesting to open your door to not only hire so-called like us normal, but also sometimes you can hire a deaf people, put it in the IT for instance, because these people, many of I think really unique talent that has less of privilege, I must say. So that's, I only want to add that, and because I experienced it myself, so I hope in the future more and more industry open their recruitment to across the different industry. That will help to bring a uniqueness into your company, because fresh eyes and has a probably have a more engagement, because you help them and they will give more to you because they have been longing for this opportunity for quite some time. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a really, really interesting point. A lot of this comes down to supply and demand. And I was with some private equity people last week for the region and asking them where is the next big opportunity. And out of the 5 of them, every single one said Indonesia in the sustainability space, because the demographics just make sense. Every single one of them also said, but it's very hard to find talent, which in my mind as a recruiter is ridiculous with such a large pool of talent. What is happening is companies, as you rightly said, are very narrow. You have to find the perfect candidate on LinkedIn who fits every single criteria, otherwise it's a no. Now that creates quite a lot of work for companies like ourselves, admittedly, but it is not sustainable, to coin a phrase. I spoke to the Minister of Manpower about this and said, what about hidden talent? So the people who don't get opportunities, the disabled and people who maybe not on the radar. Their big challenge was, we have 2.5 million people we need to find jobs for, Ollie, then we'll get onto that. Brazil, Italy have created ratios where you have to hire a certain number of people from certain backgrounds. It's becoming a big industry in its own right. So I do think if there are HR directors or country heads here, your opportunity is to look outside the box. It is a young population, which means it is entrepreneurial, it has the sense of spirit. Indonesia has that advantage across a lot of its neighbouring countries, but people just have to think outside a little bit, and I think sustainability and creating the next generation of leaders is the big opportunity to do that. What you need though is people who are willing to step up and take the responsibility. I agree, it doesn't always need to be from the top. I met with some universities from Singapore recently who are asking us, at the private sector, what courses do we need to do to supply the talent for the future? I've not had one meeting like that in Indonesia with any of the universities. So there is, and maybe to be me, but and I'm Pule, so I realise I might not be invited, but there is, these are the opportunities being proactive at all levels, and it doesn't just need to be from the top. But I think Indonesia is sat extremely well. G20 will hopefully help give that profile, but This should not be a country which struggles for talent. I think that's a myth.
Andy, did you want to say anything? You're all good? Well, we're pretty much there. I think what we've discovered this afternoon is we've got a multi-dimensional challenge on our hands to sort of summarise it. You know, we're not going to come up with all the answers today. But I think we've got enough threads, don't you? I think we've got enough tangible threads to go away and start stitching together. So on your behalf, I'd like to thank all the panelists today. Thank you so much for all the insights and sharing the wisdom and the challenges that you're putting back out there to all of us. Because if we don't provide that leadership, then nothing will change. So thank you very much. And Chris, did you want to say closing remarks?
Really just in absolute support of the comment Ollie made before. A lot of the drive, a lot of the motivation behind BritCham's establishment of its education centre, and I believe we're the only foreign chamber with an education centre, and then also the huge interest that there is in the human capital and education member focus group. Nearly or just over 50% of members are engaged there. Actually comes out of the business confidence index output that we've been doing for 7 or 8 years. And if you take out the top 3 things, which are legal uncertainty, regulatory complexity, and corruption, the next one, every single time, that represents a challenge to achieving potential is this whole conundrum around talent acquisition, talent development, and talent retention. And if we have found a hook here, it's not unique to us, but if we have found a hook that should be a discussion that we continue to develop, that we continue to debate, and we continue to rely on some wonderful insights from Windry, for example, Andy also, and Dara, all of which inspired by some fantastic data as well, BIMA, then I think that we have got a winning opportunity to really contribute to something very, very meaningful. With that, I'd like to thank the entire panel. Thank you all very, very much indeed. We've got something unique for you. We have got the first BritCham Appreciation Certificate that has been issued in the last 2 years. So, Padoni, of course, and recycled ink, in fact, it vanishes. So, Padoni, if you'd be kind enough to actually pass these certificates through. In the first instance, let's go ladies first, shall we? From Chia Ibu Indri, and that will be followed by Dara. Next is Dara. And just to put everybody on notice, when we finish this little presentation, what we want all of you to do is to come forward and to the center, and we're going to do one massive selfie of everyone. Next, Andy. And just in case our former chairman ever felt that he was not properly appreciated, Ollie. You get that on your wall in Singapore, sir. And with great appreciation for a wonderful keynote, for staying on and contributing to this conversation, and to partnering now, or accepting BritCham's partnership efforts in support of the new initiative of Apexi Medina. Thank you very much to our chairman, Paul. Dr. Paul. Okay, if I can get you all forward, come on, let's not be shy about this. We want a fantastic photo with everybody in the room. This is our first since January 2020. Let's go for it. Come on, Indonesians are never shy of photos.
Can't go home without a selfie.
And while you're all gathering, I would like to sincerely thank the support of our sponsors today, ACCA, SEMA, Diageo, and Prudential, really helping us put on a great first all over again. I think it's Cindy. Where's Cindy? Why don't you come here and get everybody from there? Yep. Let's do it in reverse. Cindy from the stage and get all of us in on a selfie style. Gather in. Come central. We've done this before. It's great. Come central.
It's just something in the...
Everybody in, wave, yo. Shoot away, shoot away.
Okay, one more, 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Go where you want, Cindy? Yep. Right.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. So, reminding everybody, you're all invited to have some drinks and some pass-around food in Blue Martini, which is at the lobby level, just going past the entrance to the hotel. All as BritCham guests, please come along, mix and mingle, say hi to a few people that perhaps you haven't seen for a long time, and others who you'd like to meet. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Great, now Cindy. Ini udah kan, Kak?